Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. We are going to be talking about the finale, the season finale of WandaVision episode 9, and we are here, guys. So if you guys subscribe to the channel, you guys have seen that I've been doing episodes every single week on WandaVision. I'm very excited to close this out with a full spoiler recap and review. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you guys do so and comment down below what you guys thought of the episode. I'll probably have some questions for you because I'm no expert in the comics, but I love talking about this show and I have some thoughts on it, and I just want to talk about this thing because it has been such a ride. So let's just jump right into this thing. This thing kicks off right away exactly where we left off in the last episode, with Agatha Harkness holding the kids hostage and essentially telling Wanda that she is the Scarlet Witch. She has all this power, this chaos magic that she doesn't deserve, because Agatha is, I guess, a witch that takes the power from people who she deems undeserving. So she thinks that Wanda doesn't deserve this power because she doesn't know what she's doing. She did all this without even thinking about it, and having the knowledge for that makes Agatha just that much more powerful, and that much have that over her. To have the knowledge over her of how to use these magical spells is the only thing that Agatha really has, because Wanda is just so much more powerful than her. And through all of this battle between witch and witch, you get to see White Vision break into the Hex and have a battle between Vision, Hex Vision, and White Vision. And this stuff was some of my favorite stuff in this entire episode, because this entire first half of the episode really is just the MCU action that maybe some people have been waiting for this show to have. And of course, it was promised by the director and we finally got it, and it was awesome. I loved everything with these two visions. Let's just jump right into this storyline before I get into the whole Wanda and Agatha thing more in depth. But you get to have this battle between the two of them, phasing through each other, breaking through, like falling through floors and grounds, and them grabbing each other and using their laser things and attacking each other. It's just all wonderful. I loved all of the Vision action, and the thing that I loved most about it is how it ended in this philosophical conversation between the two, because Vision, or Hex Vision, has this idea of this ship paradox, essentially, where if you have a ship and you replace every single board to restore it, and all these pipes and every single aspect of the ship is eventually replaced fully, is it then the same ship? And so that's the whole philosophy that they're doing with Vision going forward into the MCU, because this White Vision is, I guess, all the pieces put back together for Vision, but is it the same? It doesn't have the Mind Stone anymore. He still has some of the memories because they apparently can't suppress all the memories of Vision, and so, or of a synthesoid. So Hex Vision is able to basically touch that stone atop his head and bring all those memories up to the forefront. So I guess the question really is, what type of Vision are we going to get in the future of the MCU? Obviously, it's this White Vision character, but does he have still the same connection between him and Wanda, or is that connection kind of severed after this? Because they kind of have one more goodbye at the end of the episode. So this Vision moving forward, which I have mixed thoughts on actually them bringing back yet another character to life. And I know as the comics, everybody comes back to life, but sometimes you want characters to stay dead just for the stakes of things. But he is back, and he is some different version of this character. So comment down below what you think they're going to do with the Vision character. What is he going to be popping up in next? And what does this mean for his character and this relationship between him and Wanda? I think that is very interesting to kind of contemplate and to kind of think of. But of course, you get the main whole thing of Agatha Harkness versus Wanda Maximoff, or what she will eventually become as the Scarlet Witch, which this stuff was awesome to see Wanda use her powers in this way. And I do think this entire fight between the two was a lot more than just, zapping each other with magic and all these different things, which I do love how they ended up this battle. But, throughout the whole thing of having, them go back and forth at each other, and you get to have Wanda have that character arc of her learning from Agatha, her, I guess, greatest enemy at this point, of having these runes that she used against her earlier in, I believe, 2 episodes ago, of how a witch cannot use magic in another witch's runes. And so she essentially creates the entire hex into her rune, which essentially takes away the power from Agatha, and the Scarlet Witch is able to absorb all that power back. And I honestly believed when this episode was going through that they're going to go through the generic storyline of having a power-hungry character absorb all this power and have it be too much for them, and they explode and die in some tragic and horrific way, which happens in a lot of movies, honestly. It kind of happened in Doctor Sleep. It happens all the time in different stuff, whether it's books or movies or TV or whatever. This storyline is very cliched, and they dodged that cliche very well in this episode, because they had Wanda absorb all this power back into herself, and she becomes the Scarlet Witch, new costume and all, which looks amazing, by the way. She looks great as this character, and they float back down, and Wanda does the most cruel thing she could possibly do to Agatha, which is not to kill her or to destroy her, but to suppress her into the character that she was throughout the sitcom of the whole WandaVision WandaVision thing, which is the nosy neighbor character. So she is stuck in the body of Agnes, forever living in Westview until Wanda eventually and inevitably needs her help once again, which might be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which we get a little tease in the after credits of Wanda going through the Darkhold, which we also get confirmation that it was the Darkhold indeed, that book that Agnes had, or that Agatha had in her little lair. And so I also don't know what the Darkhold really is. I know it's, you know, the Book of the Damned or whatever, and so Wanda was reading at the end of it, and you hear the Doctor Strange, you know, theme in the background. You get to hear Billy and Tommy screaming out to her. And so what does this all mean? Please let me know in the comments down below, because I am clueless in terms of what the Darkhold actually is. I know it was in, I believe it was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. briefly, so there's some stuff with that. I'm not sure if that show is still canon or whatever, but it's very interesting to see that this show really does lead into the future of this character. Is she going to be able to control this power? Is she going to try to do something once again to bring her kids back and break into the multiverse? Are we going to see that in Multiverse of Madness? Because I know she plays a very pivotal role. Is she the inciting incident that sparks the whole conflict within Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? That gets me very excited to see where that movie goes in the future. But this episode really was just a whole, I mean, this not just this episode, this entire series has been a whole thing about Wanda Maximoff becoming the Scarlet Witch. This is her origin story. This is her story and her character arc of her grief and her pain that she's suffered throughout all the MCU movies. And what I love that they're doing shows with is, with a TV show, you can really dive into character stories. And I know there's some aspects of this episode that might disappoint some fans because of their greater universe bending fan theories, which the director also commented on, which I will get into, Pietro, in a second here. But in general, the storyline and the character arc that they went through with Wanda Maximoff was beautiful. I love this story. I love how, you know, she had one last conversation with Monica of how these people in Westview will never see her as the sacrifices that she made. They'll only recognize her with the pain that she caused them and the pain that she put upon them and the grief that she put upon them, which is very tragic because she's kind of in a situation that Hulk was in Age of Ultron, where he caused so many people so much destruction and he just didn't mean to do any of that. But you can't just change the perception of how people look at you if you already caused them so much pain. But let's get into this Pietro Maximoff stuff, because what a way to wrap up this character and this mystery. Am I right, guys? What a way to do it. And I know that the director, Shakman, I believe is his name, had an interview a couple days ago where he said that he believes that fans will be disappointed because of the massive fan theories that were built around this show, this universe-bending fan theories. And, of course, you get the answer of Evan Peters' character in this show being RALPH BOHNER. Yeah, you guys heard me right. His name is RALPH BOHNER. He was the husband to Agnes, and I really don't know. Maybe he's still Quicksilver from the other reality, but no, I'm pretty much completely ruling that out of the case. And honestly, I think the reasoning behind this was in part to screw with us as a fandom, because Kevin Feige knew what he was doing. He knew that he was bringing in that actor just to mess with us, because look at all the videos and the fan theories and the conversations that were created off of his appearance in this show. And I believe he was the mind-bending cameo that they were all talking about, unless that was, you know, Paul Bettany, wanting to work with Paul Bettany. Was that the actor that he's never worked with, that he's always wanted to work with? That was probably honestly what he was talking about. But I do believe that Elizabeth Olsen was talking about Evan Peters, his cameo in this entire show. And I loved the fact that he got one more chance to play this character, because they really did underuse him in the old X-Men movies. He has a lot of great scenes, and he's such a great version of that character in those movies, especially Days of Future Past, and even X-Men Apocalypse. I know that movie is not the best, but he is fantastic in that one scene that he has in that film. But, you know, that was they're tipping the cap to recognizing that those movies existed, that they were a part of, you know, a lot of big fandoms, and bringing him for one last hurrah is kind of a send-off to that cast and those characters. I know Kevin Feige talked for hours with Patrick Stewart about possibly returning as Professor X, because he is the perfect Professor X, but since he had such a perfect send-off in Logan, both Patrick Stewart and Kevin Feige thought that that was the perfect way to end his role in that character. So unfortunately, we won't be seeing any of these X-Men characters that we have grown to know in the past, but we did get an announcement just yesterday that Marvel is working on a reboot of the X-Men, possibly called The Mutants. That is the working title, or at least the title that we're going forward with these characters. Whether that's rumor or true, I do believe that to be true, of them just completely rebooting the X-Men franchise, which gets me excited because we have a lot more casting options for these characters that we can have in the MCU. But it was a fun, kind of twisted way to just screw with fans with Evan Peters in this show. And a few other miscellaneous things that I want to hit in this episode before I end the video is, of course, the whole Monica Rambeau and Tommy and Billy, them fighting off the entire like military installation that's, you know, trying to take over them. And of course, that leading to Hayward's arrest because that guy sucks. That guy was awful. And he does lead to the recreation of Vision, or at least the creation of White Vision. So he had one good use, I guess, but for the most part, he was just kind of a generic, you know, bad military type guy, which is fine for the show. He wasn't the focus of it, and they had a great character arc for Wanda, so he doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But I do love Monica Rambeau and Teyonah Parris as this character. She was by far one of my favorite things throughout this entire show, and getting her powers and seeing her powers in use in this episode, of how the bullets kind of phase through her because she controls like the electromagnetic light waves around her, and so she's able to phase it through her body and drop it out from her and stop it. And you get to see Billy stop the bullets in the air, or I think it was Billy that stopped the bullet in there with his magic, and you get to see Tommy run through and take away all their guns, and just a lot of fun stuff with this. And I do believe we will get the kids back eventually with the whole thing, because I mean that happened in the comics as well. As you know, Agatha Harkness convinced, or at least didn't convince, but told Wanda that her children weren't real and to let go of that reality that she was holding on to, and she does in the comics, letting go of her kids, but they eventually become real later in the future. So I do believe we will get a Wiccan and what's the other kid's name? I think it's Wiccan and Speed or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I'm forgetting the names of them, but I do believe that we'll eventually get those characters in the future, just not right now. And one more thing with Monica Rambeau, she goes into the theater at the very end, I think in the first post-credit scene. I think it was a post-credit scene, or it's just the end of the episode. I'm not quite sure of which one it was, but she goes off into like this theater, and she's confronted by a scroll. One of the characters turns into a scroll and says that somebody wants you up there, get off Earth, finally get into space like she wanted to do at the beginning of the season. And she gets to go up there with the Skrulls and possibly meet Nick Fury, and leading into Captain Marvel 2 and possibly Secret Invasion, because I know that is also a show that Marvel is working on. So I believe that Teyonah Parris will return in all of those properties in the future, which gets me extremely excited to see her, because she was fantastic as this character in the show, and her origin story within this was really, really cool to see. And you also get Jimmy Woo, you know, wrapping up his leadership of this military operation now, and of course we'll see him again in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or whatever he's in the future. Maybe he will be in Secret Invasion 2. Whatever he's going to be in, I'm down for it. Maybe he pops up in Fantastic Four, because I do believe that his character does kind of fit with those characters. So it's interesting to see where this character will go, because I didn't like him when he was originally introduced into the MCU, but I love him now after the show, because I think he was a perfect fit for this. And before I wrap up the video, I want to talk about the ending of this episode, which was just the heartbreaking goodbye between Wanda Maximoff, Vision, and the two kids, which is very heartbreaking to see that scene. But what was even more heartbreaking was Wanda saying goodbye once again to the Vision, at least the Hex Vision that she created, which was confirmed for, I guess, him to be the remnant of the Mind Stone that lived within Wanda, and that coming out of her to create this, I guess, version of the Vision that she so desperately wanted to have a life with. And to have that full goodbye instead of having that ripped away from her was nice to see, and it's a very proper goodbye. And I know they'll have some sort of reunion with whatever this White Vision is going to be in the future, but that won't be the same relationship as what we got here. So this is the goodbye of that relationship, at least I believe, and it was a very sweet goodbye. You get to see him withering away with the Hex slowly shrinking down into the house, and she goes and drives off into the distance and eventually flies off to Sokovia, where I already talked about that post-credit scene where she's reading the Darkhold and all that stuff. And I believe she did fly over to Sokovia. I'm pretty sure. It kind of looked like that landscape, which is kind of cool to see what that turned out to be after the whole Age of Ultron incident. But that will be the end of my review for WandaVision Episode 9, which I just looked at the title being the series finale. What a title for this episode, which I guess there won't be a season 2 of this unless they just do another Wanda show, because I don't think it'll necessarily be called WandaVision because of how distinct the style was for the show. I probably will have a video with my brother of just, you know, full podcast, hour-long talk about this episode of us just gushing about it, talking about the unique aspect of it, because this show was extremely unique, which is one of my favorite parts of it, and the style of the sitcom stuff was awesome to see. And we eventually got to the more standard MCU stuff, especially in this episode, but I did love the overall show and the entire season. Like I said, if you guys want to check out the playlist for all those videos, it's going to be in the iCard up in one of the corners. I'm not sure which one. I think it's that one. Probably got that wrong. But also check out my reviews for the DCEU movies. I reviewed Man of Steel, and I just uploaded my Batman vs Superman review in the build up to, of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League, which will be coming out very soon. And I also just reviewed Raya and the Last Dragon, which is a new movie into theaters, which was amazing. Probably one of my favorite movies of the years thus far, which was just such a good movie. One of the best Disney movies in years. So definitely check out both of those reviews and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below what you thought of the RALPH Bohner thing, and I will see you guys all in my next one.